Hi guys, welcome to the video, welcome to Gatwick in the UK, and welcome to this beastie here. This is the RJ Professional for Microsoft Flight Simulator by Just Flight, and it's what we're going to be having a look at today. In the time-honoured fashion, we'll have a look at the outside, the inside, take it for a flight and see what we think. So, I'm going to mention a couple of things before we go any further. As you guys know, I'm always impartial in terms of reviews and you know, my content, but I do need to declare that this has been given to me for review by Just Flight. Although there's no holds barred, I've still found some things wrong with it which we will highlight. And as ever, if I find it, I will not just say it, but I will show it to you guys as well. So although this product's very highly thought of, it's still not without issues. One of them that I've found which bugs me slightly is in relation to the hold capabilities of the aircraft. So for me, I've got a little issue over holds, and if you fly online, that's quite pertinent to what you want to do. So as I say, we're going to have a look at this with the impartial eye and see what we think. In addition, this was released a few days ago. I tend to leave my reviews for a few days for the dust to settle before doing a review, because sometimes what you find is if you rush it into the first couple of days, what happens is there'll be an update. You know, people find X, Y and Z wrong. A couple of days, maybe a week later, you'll find there's an update, and all of a sudden what you've said previously doesn't necessarily match what you've now got as a download or as an add-on. So this came out a few days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, something like that, and I've been having a look at it, poking and prodding as you do before we get to this stage. Now, I'd ask, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to tick like, share and subscribe. Particularly subscribe and share for smaller content producers like myself. It has a disproportionately huge effect. It helps us out massively, not just for me, but for everyone who's a smaller content producer. It's hugely appreciated as ever. And likewise, I do have a Patreon page, so if you want to support me further with creating content, that would be hugely appreciated. Now let's have a look at a couple of bits over here. Let's get web stuff up. Here we go, web stuffs. So this is the product page on Just Flight's website. It's only available through them, I believe, and they did the 146 before this. This is kind of a more modern version of the 146. There's quite a few changes in terms of operating it, in terms of the pilot's toolkit in the cockpit. But fundamentally, it's a very similar sort of marketplace to the 146. And in fact, when you look at a lot of the documents, so I managed to get some of the original documents for the aircraft, and if you look at the documents, it's described as the Avro 146/RJ. So you know, British Aerospace or Avro didn't really distinguish it as a completely different aircraft, if that makes sense. But anyway, I digress. They've highlighted some of the highlighty bits here, EFIS FADEC, dual IRS, etc. Custom coded GNLU 910A FMS. Now, I did do a dig around. I couldn't get a lot of information on this, but it looks like it's basically a modified Boeing 737 type FMS. So we'll have a look at that. That's quite interesting. Going down, one of the most important bits of all, £52.49 sterling. I do apologise, I don't quite know what that's going to relate to in dollars or euros, but it's not on the cheap side. So the question you say is not, well, how expensive is it? It's what value for money do you get, i.e. are you getting what you pay for? And I go back to the days when we had developers creating modules in P3D, and they were asking £100, £110 just for a single module, which for me, I'm glad we're past these days, because this is a pretty high fidelity model. They've put a lot of work into this, so it's been no mean feat on Just Flight's part. There's a couple of things I'll highlight in relation to VNAV and a couple of other bits, but overall there's an awful lot of information just here in terms of the product and what you get and all of the things that are included, and you'll see that the list is vast. So I'm not going to go through this list. What I'll do is I'll drop a link for this in the description of the video, and you can have a perusal at your own time. So at your own speed, that's what I was trying to say. So we are going to take it for a flight. We're going to go from Gatwick all the way down to Jersey. I've done the flight once before, and it had a bit of a moment with the hold. We practiced a hold up here, and it had a bit of a moment with it. It did do the hold, but it wasn't quite how I'd have expected. And we also did an RNAV approach down here. I flew it at night, and we had a bit of a moment with that. So we're going to fly this in daytime and see what it's like. I will say the night lighting on this thing is absolutely glorious. In fact, a lot of the stuff in relation to this is glorious. But as I say, last time I went down to Jersey, we went off the end of the runway. So yeah, but it's an interesting jet, an interesting aircraft, because there's a lot of stuff going for it that you wouldn't find on. In fact, let me just get that back up again. There's a lot of stuff going on it that you wouldn't find in other aircraft that makes it quite unique to operate and handle. And that for me becomes interesting. I think once you get to the point of just plugging in your FMC and just ignoring it for 2 hours and then coming back to it to land, I think for me that's not where I see myself in terms of flight simming. I like to either fly online where I've got ATC and therefore it's engaging me, or I like to fly an aircraft. And I think this sort of aircraft, I mean, normally it'd do routes for an hour to an hour and a half, stuff like that. It would be hopping around between cities. And this is the collection of documentation. Now, there's a couple of things that I'll mention. Two things make me really happy with add-on aircraft. One is really good documentation. We've got that here. And the other one is a tutorial flight. Guess what we've also got here? We've got a tutorial flight. Now, it's not a YouTube tutorial flight. It's a step-by-step written one that you can follow through. And the advantage for me is that if you don't quite pick something up in a YouTube video, you've got to go back and repeat it and go back, go back 10 seconds, 15 seconds, go over it again. If it's paper, it takes a split second to reread a sentence and go, all right, yeah, that makes sense. So I, for one, am a fan of tutorial flights. I think they're absolutely epic in terms of being able to show you all about the aircraft. And this has a tutorial flight. And I just think, I miss it. But anyway, this is the operations manual. And I've had a look at the original documentation that you get for the FCOM for this aircraft, and they go into a lot of depth in this document, and it's over 200 pages long, and they go into little bits and bobs about everything to do with the systems and aircraft management, and where you've got different click spots in various bits, and there's bits that will help you with just flying and operating the aircraft. Now, some aircraft you can just jump in, fire up the engines and just go for it. For this one, unless you've flown the 146, I would suggest it's worth having a look at the documentation, or at least going down the route of a tutorial flight so that you can get that first flight under your belt. It's not the most difficult of aircraft to operate, but what I will say is it's not a Boeing and it's not an Airbus. So therefore you do need to learn the intricacies of this aircraft. And as I say, it's a fairly high fidelity aircraft. There's a lot of stuff that for me I'm not remotely interested in, but other people will be, like the cabin handsets that work, etc., the PAs, the music. I quite like the fun of the music player, but as I say, this is 200 odd pages. You can see it's enormous as a document, and Control F is your friend in terms of trying to find things in this. But on the flip side, compared to some of the sort of scanned images you get of FCOMs, this one has been presented in a really nice manner. They've taken the time and the effort to go through this, and it's very presentable, very easy to read, and contains a vast amount of information. So that we like. We've also got a complete manual for the flight management system. It's unique in its own right. You'll see from the aesthetics when we get in the aircraft, it's got a lot of similarities in appearance compared to, say, a 737 FMS. It's subtly different, but if you're familiar with the 737, you'll pick up on some of the bits where it's the same. I'm not sure if it's Collins or yeah, it might be Collins who produce it, but I'm not entirely sure, not 100% sure on the manufacturer of it, but we'll come across that. But it's the GNLU 910A. As I say, I couldn't find much documentation about it. It's quite a rare beast by all accounts. So I thought it might have been a UNS to start with, but it appears not. But it goes into a lot of detail there in terms of functionality and what it does. And then finally you've got the performance element with the EFB, the almost ubiquitous EFB. We'll have a look at that in the cockpit as well. But yeah, so that's 3 sets of documentation. They are very well laid out, very well presented, and I highly recommend taking the time to have a look through those. So here she is in all her glory, and certainly from the outset it's very easy to see that she's quite an attractive bird. Bit stumpy, very low to the ground, but I think, I think she's very attractive. And in the Microsoft Flight Simulator lighting and whatnot, I think she's a glorious looking thing. We'll have a look slightly closer in a moment, but I think the proportions, she's just a chunky little madam, isn't she? Really is. Really nicely modelled. It's a very nice demonstration of 3D modelling by the development team. So, start to pick it apart and see what we think. So, I believe this GSX integration with this thing, I don't tend to use it. I tend to use the built-in stuff because me and GSX don't really get on. But as you can see from the outset, the initial 3D modelling is very nice. We've got the various add-ons, so we've got the windscreen wipers up there, we've got the temperature probe and the angle of attack indicator, or the pitot, sorry, I should say, in the angle of attack vein. Is it an ice detection vein or an angle of attack? I think it's angle of attack. And this is a static port, I would have thought, but what you can see already is we've got a little bit of straight lining in the text in the modelling here, and the texturing isn't as good as some of those we've seen. So I assume this would be a static port. I'm not entirely sure, but you can see that we start to lose a little bit of how crisp the textures are here, and it's definitely 2D textures just with the rivets, etc. The text itself and around the windows, you can see around the windows, it's not as good as some that we've seen of late, and the text starts to get a bit scruffy. But what I will do is I'll add that some of the 3D modelling has been done to a really high standard. So if we look over here at these points, this is a point that those who follow my videos know that I go to this sort of area quite often. This shows the expertise in 3D modelling. I think you'd have to agree that looks really rather good. You've got some very complex curves going on here that they've managed to demonstrate to a really high standard. Likewise, PBR, very well done. So we've got anti-icing panel here, which is nice and shiny metal. We've got a really high gloss finish on the paintwork, and then other areas like the tyres. Come down to the tyres and you can see that we've got a very matte or satiny finish. Very nice overall. So the overall appearance, the aesthetics is very good to start with. She sits very low on our undercarriage, so we can't have a look at the nose wheel that well. But having said that, I don't know many people who spend much time at this this sort of position. But as you can see, nice 3D modelling, nice texturing. Some of the aircraft I've had a look at recently have had actual 3D modelling of the tyres, so you've been able to see the grooves in the tyres, but these are more than adequate. Decent amount of texturing on the nose leg, and of course the 146 retracts its nose gear bay doors when it retracts its gear. Again, very nice looking overall. Just the odd sort of wrinkle in the lines, nothing too major. Just come down here, have a look under the engines. It's known as the Whisper Jet because of how quiet it is, but it's got a couple of peculiarities. It's got no thrust reverse, unlike most jet engines these days. Again, we just lose a little bit of the definition in the textures around there. Look in the engine. Yeah, again, the spinner's a bit, well, it's not technically a spinner, but it's a bit sort of greyish and not as high class as some developers managed to achieve. Nice PBR with the metallics and the sort of bronzy, silvery effect for the anti-ice sections. Again, really nice 3D modelling around the wing pylons where they join. If I come down here, you can see, if you zoom in, it becomes a bit less clear. What we'll say is the animations are very good on this, the 3D animations. They're great. Nice depiction of the lights here. And then static wicks galore. It's the flap system on this is Yeah, if you think about Boeing 737, these a modern one, you've got flaps, you know, 1, 2, 5, etc. This starts at flap 18, which is where a lot of other airliners are halfway through their their flaps. This starts at 18. Nice 3D modelling of the door handles. Really nice to see that. And obviously you've got your APU exhaust here. I will mention that this this tail design for British Airways, it was like a ethnic multicultural type artwork that they added to the tails in the 90s. And I personally quite like a lot of them. Some people didn't, and famously Margaret Thatcher didn't like them. Obviously she was quite a divisive character in her own right, but she decided when she saw a model of one of these at Cranebank, I think it was, the headquarters of British Airways, she draped a handkerchief over the tail of one of the models. She wasn't a fan. Some of the things that are unique to the well, not necessarily unique to the aircraft, but make it interesting. You'll see that with no power on, the elevator sits in the up position, and that's because it's basically flown into situ as a backup by adjusting these anti-balance tabs. So if you imagine basically you've got an anti-balance tab, it's the same sort of mechanism as they have on the MD80, where in effect your anti-balance tab then drives the position of your elevator. So yeah, it's a fascinating system, and it sits in this position because I believe this section here is a balance weight, and therefore it's to reduce the control loads on the pilots, but therefore because of the weight that's ahead of the hinge line, it sits in that position. So there's some really clever engineering in this thing. Likewise, one of its well-known features, which it does sit open like this when it's got no pressure in it, is the air brake at the back of the aircraft, clamshell air brake. Nicely modelled, I have to say. When you look at that, really nicely modelled. No qualms there. We'll come down and have a look at the main gear. And again, the main gear is nicely modelled. Textures lose a little bit close to, but having said that, I come back to my previous point from my learned friend in terms of how often do we stare at the undercarriage from 6 inches with our noses pressed against it. Not very often, I would hazard a guess. A little bit uneven here with the rings that are okay there, and then a bit wibbly wobbly here. But yeah, I mean, not the most amazing, but certainly good enough for our purposes. So looking at the 3D model then and the exterior, overall done to a very high standard. There's a few areas where it's noticeable in terms of the quality just dropping away in certain areas. Predominantly textures, I have to say, but the vast majority of it, very happy with it. 3D modelling itself in terms of complex areas, very good. So thumbs up to start with there. So let's pop inside and see what we get there. Okay, so here we are inside. It's all gone a bit quiet, and this is a lovely environment. So that brings me on to the ubiquitous tablet, which every aircraft seems to have. I'm waiting for it to appear in gliders now, but Just Flights isn't the most advanced, but it is practical and it is functional. It does meet the standards that are required of it. So this is your opening page. You can open your operational flight plan, which actually I don't think I have set up. So I'll probably come up with something. Right, this is our last flight. Yeah, we're gonna use this route anyway. But the first observation is it hasn't quite got the same level of synchronization as say the Phoenix. There's still certain elements where it's not linked between sections, which is absolutely fine for me. It just means that you've got to put a little bit more thought into what you're doing. But we've got all the usual things in terms of MET, summary for the flight, and then if you go back to the main menu, you've got a map, which I must admit for me is a bit of a, I'm not quite sure about this because it doesn't really give me much that, yeah, I suppose you could zoom in and see what it's not my favourite part. I never really use it. That's an indication. Charts, you can have Navigraph integration, which is really good. And then let's see if it's got EGKK, which is where we're leaving. Call those up, and we're doing the where's my departure SIDS? We're doing the Lelny, not the Lambourne. It's not the Lelny, is it? What are we doing today? The Novum 1 X-ray. Novum 1 X-ray. That one. And then zoom in, and if you want, you can pop your aircraft there, just in case you'd lost track of it and you didn't know where you left the keys. And there we go. And then likewise, we'll go to taxi, and we can go to 20-9. -9 is the same across virtually everywhere. The -9 chart is the one for the airport. So you'll see it pop up like this, and there we are with our lovely cyan blue aircraft. Really nice. And we'll just zoom in. So where are we going to be taxiing? Going to be taxiing out, going on 26 left. So down here, there's 26 right, although I don't believe that's used in real world. I think it's more of a extra wide taxiway more than anything at the moment. But they are apparently looking at possibly bringing this back into operation, which would be interesting if they do. But to my knowledge, it's generally used more as a taxiway than anything at the moment. But we are going to come round from here, down here, along here, down here, and take off here for 26 left. As I say, that's pretty much what I've got in my plan, which is a grand. Back here, aircraft. You can load up your aircraft here. If you've got SimBrief going, it will ask you to import your SimBrief OFP payload. I am going to import it, and because I am really restless, I'm going to start refueling with it being instant, and I'm going to load the passengers with it being instant. There we go, all done. Boarding is complete. Thank you very much. I must admit, I tend to lose track of when I'm supposed to click things for these announcements. So you may find that if I'm flying, all of a sudden I'll come up with an announcement that should have been done 5 minutes ago, but there we go. In terms of things you can open a lot of stuff. You can apply ground air if you wish, and you can apply ground power, which I will do. And then if we pop outside, you can see we've got an APU with some nice air coming out of it, hot exhaust, and then coming around here. Here are your elements that they're outdoors, and very nice they are too. What I will say is without GSX there's a limited amount of stuff that comes to prep your aircraft, but I'm one of those people who doesn't really do the role-playing element. I'm more interested in the actual flyy bit as opposed to the loady bit, and so I've just wrecked that because I pressed the wrong button. I do hate the drone cam. But we are going to close it all up because we can. Actually, what I'll do is I will bring it in like this, because I'm going to just quickly put the stairs out and we can have a look at the animation. If the van gets out of the way. Where's my drone cam? Oh man, I hate this sim sometimes. Of course now it's gone back to super fast mode. Maybe not an issue, but all I want to do is get a shot of this flipping animation, which I think is really good. There we go. Slight slide to the left because I want to show that angle of it. So if we go there, so here we go. Look at that. The animation for that is great. And then I love this last bit. Look at that, that's fantastic. And then we'll close the door as well. Yeah. Very little to moan about there. The 3D modelling and the animations are done to a very nice standard. So we've got ground power applied. We'll have a look at a couple of other things in terms of these bits on the EFB. So in terms of, you've got settings that you can raise, etc., for all the bits that are there. play around with them to your heart's content. GSX handling, etc. I don't have GSX. Me and it have a frequent fight, and I've decided I'm going to win by turning it off. Failures, there is a long and prestigious list of failures available to you to play around with, and it reminds me very much of the old FSX failures with you can arm it to happen after a certain amount of minutes, and yeah, it's just a nice, straightforward, easily done element. You can have it random in terms of failure, probability, real, etc. Fix all, which, yeah, it's just a nice and easy thing to do. Their pushback, I wouldn't say it's idiot proof, but certainly I've managed to use it without destroying everything around me. It's harder to use at night because you kind of have to, this isn't a pop out, so you can't stick your head out the window or jump out the aircraft in order to do your manoeuvring, so you kind of have to go with it, and because you haven't got any lights behind you at night, it makes it quite sporty. But yeah, so that is available to us. So let's pop back in to the list. Aircraft notes. If you wanted to write some notes, you can write some notes there. If you wanted to just jot down your clearances, etc. The checklist, we've got a checklist here, but we've also got the Microsoft Flight Simulator checklist, which I'll be using. The first check is over 100 items just for preparing the aircraft. It's madness, this thing. It's cool. Top of descent calculator, ridiculously straightforward, very, very useful because of the flight management system, which we'll go into a bit in a bit. But that's probably the most useful tool in here, apart from loading the aircraft, I'll be honest. The OFP, you could turn around and say, well, yeah, that's useful. The only thing for me is my vision's not great these days due to my age and various other medical things. So this for me is a bit small, whereas if I stick it on the other monitor, I can have it into whacking great large and have it through there, which is what I tend to do. But for immersion factor, this is brilliant. There's absolutely no qualms about it. This is a really good immersion factor to be able to have it on your tablet as they would do in the real world. And then finally you've got a couple of settings at the end, which is absolutely grand. So here we are back in the stand, back in the sim, and I think we're at a different stand from what I've clicked in, but it's not a problem. The OF is going to be potentially slightly different, but that's not an issue. We'll just go with what's in here because that's what's in the sim. Yeah, import the sim brief, flight plan, start refueling, start boarding, ground power on.
Boarding is complete.
There we go. Ground power is going to connect. We've done all our looky outside bits, so we're pretty much ready to go. So there's a few helpers in the cockpit, and I'm going to mention a couple of these before we go any further. The cockpit's a bit cramped in here, as you can see. But there's a couple of useful click spots in here. The first one is this one here. So if you click up here, it gets rid of this armrest, which blocks this panel down here. All of a sudden we can see what we're doing down here. First thing, happy with that. The second thing is that you can get rid of your yoke. Just press the pedal adjust. It disappears. Does it independently on both sides. So wherever the yoke thing is there. Ding. And all I'm going to say at this point is I absolutely love the interior. It brings back a lot of memories from flying the Jetstream 41 or the Jetstream 4100 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. An absolute peach of an aircraft. In my opinion, the best aircraft that PMDG ever developed. And it was the first aircraft that had the ability to look around the cockpit as a 3D... sorry, not the first aircraft to have a look around in the 3D cockpit. It's the first aircraft that didn't have a 2D cockpit. So you had to have it in 3D. But by my reckoning, that's still one of the greatest aircraft that's been produced for the sim. But the avionics and the engine gauges, all that sort of thing, are absolutely British Aerospace. They're brilliant. They absolutely look fantastic. Really like them. Now this is kind of in the early days of EFIS, so not everything is on your little tellies down here, your screens. You've still got things like an analog altimeter, etc. So this for me is a fascinating period in aviation. It's kind of when the automation really starts to kick in with the civil airliners, and it's an absolutely brilliant time. Obviously compared to the 146, I'll highlight a few of the differences. We'll come up here. Again, absolutely love the aesthetics of the panel. So I used to train as an observer in the Fleet Air Arm as in a Jetstream T2. So it was a version of the Jetstream 3132 with additional avionics and stuff in it. But the overhead panel, it's this sort of thing. British Aerospace through and through, really, really nice. The only disadvantage in the sim is sometimes you can't necessarily tell the position of a switch. So the autopilot switch is not that clear whether it's on or off. So sometimes you might find, oh, it was on all the time. But the aesthetics, really, really nice. I mentioned this, the circuit breakers. Some of the circuit breakers work, some of them don't. Obviously, the ones up here don't work, but these ones do. Do they? We've got click spots, but it doesn't appear to do anything. So I wonder if that's work in progress. I don't know. But as I say, we've got failure modelling. I'm just not sure what's happening with the circuit breakers. But anyway, moving on. Lovely panel. However, it's got a lot of bits to it that are not anomalies but different to other aircraft. So the lighting panel is as far away from the captain as you could physically get. It's up here, but it doesn't have the exterior lights, all of the exterior lights here. So you've got landing lights down in the bottom centre, you've got the beacon strobe nav up in the top right. And that's one of the things that I love about this sort of aircraft, is you really have to learn the aircraft, because there's a certain amount of ergonomics that just, you know, there's an element of stick the switches in a shotgun, fire it at the roof, and where they land, they land. Other things, so the APU's down here, but the APU generator's down here, but the APU air is over here. It's just a wonderfully enjoyable environment, because you have to learn it, you have to sort of challenge it. You know, it's not like going, if you learn an Airbus A320, you can pretty much do the whole Airbus range just on that one piece of knowledge. And once you have that dark cockpit principle, aircraft like this are a very different beast. We've got a mixture of analog and digital instrumentation. Absolutely love it. So yeah, a couple of other things I'm going to mention. It does have IRS, inertial reference system. That is down on the, oh dear, what's going on? That's down here by the first officer side, and it's obviously down here because it's they haven't got anywhere up here to put it, because the original aircraft, the 146 that this was developed from, didn't have that. But we'll see that that's an element that's new. Pressurization panel, new. For those who've flown the 146, this would be an absolute godsend. It's a lovely piece of kit. It's one of those where you can turn it on, check it, and just leave it to its own devices, unless, of course, you start to get hypoxia. The fuel system's a bit of an odd one. Not quite as odd as the engines, where you start with the anti-icing for the engines on. I don't know. There's been some discussion on forums about the sort of blowback pressure, and about it reducing the blowback pressure, and therefore helps make the engine start easier. I don't know. I've never operated this thing. I genuinely have, other than a passenger, I've never been near one of these things, and I only did that once. But the character of the beast, it just oozes through on this thing. Really does. It's a fascinating thing. As I say, these screens, they're very similar to those that you find in the Jetstream 4100. I don't know if they're in the ATP, but they are very reminiscent. I absolutely love these things personally. And likewise, if you are familiar with the 737, you'll know what this MCP is like. A couple of things I will mention in terms of the MCP. It's got a button that says VNAV, but it doesn't do VNAV. The aircraft, apparently, originally it was looking at doing VNAV as a mode that was supported, but in the end they decided against it. And I guess there's a certain element of that, is that these things were quite often used in short routes where VNAV wasn't necessarily going to be that beneficial to them. You know, it's basically up, short cruise down, and so, you know, there's a cost implication with implementing things like vertical navigation, not just beyond the equipment, but you've also got to have the training costs in terms of any impact it has on the crew, the engineers, and so on and so forth. So just because it's one switch doesn't mean that it's something that's an easy decision for an airline to make, and it's that cost balance thing, isn't it, at the end of the day. But obviously there wasn't enough demand from the customers for the implementation of VNAV, it would appear. radio panels, or sorry, the VHF navigation panels either side, very Boeing styly. So this whole section is a bit Boeing. This section is literally lifted out of a 737. I think these dials were on the 737, or maybe not. But this whole thing screams Jetstream 41. This bit screams Boeing. This bit screams Jetstream 41. You can see where I'm going with this. It's all over the place. And then I'll mention it when we start up. I think there's potentially an issue with these gauges here, the engine gauges. The carrot salad, Jetstream 31, 32, 41. This is, let's do it this way. This is the flight management system, and then it's got the same sort of weather radar that you get in Jetstreams, for example. So it's just fun. Big thing, of course, is it doesn't have thrust reverse. So it does short takeoff and landing without thrust reverse, which I think is fabulous. And then back down here, this is a big one here. This is your brake temperature, and it's big because at the end of the day, if you haven't got thrust reverse, your brakes are fundamentally what's going to be stopping you, your brakes and your spoilers. And this thing could work short takeoff landing, so you would have to make sure that your brakes are monitored in terms of temperature. And I've had a couple of flights where I've overheated them. Not necessarily so much of an issue in the sim, but in the real world, your brakes are fundamentally how you get rid of energy. So when you're braking to a halt, you're converting that energy of the forward movement basically into heat, which you're trying to dissipate. And the more you can get rid of in terms of heat, the better. So obviously, if you then have hot brakes, when you then start for your next takeoff, your braking ability is going to be vastly reduced if you have to do a stop. So the brake temperatures in an aircraft are quite crucial, because it's where all the energy disappears when you're braking, from taking your energy from forward travel to braking. So these are quite important, and you'll see I think they've been done to a really good standard. But yeah, so again, I just think they've done a great job in terms of this. Right, so let's have a look at the 3D modelling, shall we? Coming over here. First thing I'm going to look at is the panel. I think the panel's been done to a very good standard. Just come down a bit and come around here, and you can see the depth and quality of the 3D modelling here. This is a very complex looking instrument to my eyes. I don't know how you would model a 3D instrument like that in a 2D screen. It's beyond me. But you can see the quality of the 3D modelling instrumentation, the depth in terms of the gauges, the layering. You can see the different texturing, the use of PBR for different glazing. Really, really nicely done. A bit of dirt on some of the screens, wear and tear around others. Yeah, really high standard of 3D modelling. Scuffs on the textures down the side of the pedestal, centre pedestal. You can see that we've got different textures for the left and right pedals, although I did notice the other day, I think the left and right pedal sets are, yeah, this is basically this reversed, I think. So there are duplicity in some of the textures, but not to the point where you would notice. Again, need some switches. We haven't got unique sounds for switches, but the sounds that are there are very, very good. It's quite quiet. So yeah, it's very interesting. Couple of other things we're going to mention down here. Your thrust management system. So you had a similar one in the 146. We will mention it in a bit, but basically it's something that helps you out big time. Your reference cards down here, automatic, very helpful. We'll have a look at that as we set up for a takeoff. Yeah, just speed brake. Speed brakes are manually operated for this. It can do steep approaches. We're not going to do one today, but it can do steep approaches, which is all the more impressive if you consider it hasn't got thrust reverse. It's just fantastic. Where are we going? Yeah, noises and sounds. So very, very nicely done. Looking at aesthetics overall, 3D modelling done to a very high standard. Texturing done to a very high standard. Very, very nice indeed. We'll have a wander through here. Cabin. These are the sorts of seats I remember from when I was flying in it. These sort of leather commuter type seats. There's not a lot in here that's clickable for those who like their interior cabins, so you can't click those, they don't do anything. Overhead bins don't do anything, but aesthetically it's very pleasing. I do like it. We'll continue our slow and painful trudge towards the back. As I say, I think aesthetically it absolutely nails it. I do like the background sounds as well, although it seems a bit weird. We've got a completely empty aircraft with some chatter in the background. So I'm wondering just exactly which ghosts we're transporting around the world here. Obviously the other thing that's noticeable, the ambient noises have reduced. They're much quieter. You can operate the doors from inside, should you wish. Obviously don't fall down. And then just close them up again. Really nice animations, nice texturing. It is, as I say, a lovely looking beast. And as I say, the interphone, should you wish to, you can interact with that and use that for that sort of a role-playing element. No access to the toilet, just in case you had the urge. But yeah, very nice. So in terms of the interior, we're happy with that. So next thing we're going to have a look at is in terms of the checklist. Oh, hello. So I'm re-recording this bit now for about the 10th or 11th time because I wanted to show holding, and I've had multiple issues with the holding. So we're restarting everything in terms of the flight to see if we can demonstrate a few bits. I've confused it no end of times, and it just seems to be, I don't know if it's me or the sim or something's going awry in here, but let's get ourselves going. So I've started right at the very back, at the very front of it, because there is an issue for me in terms of this bit here. So I'm going to go all the way down here. I'm going to just pick my departure point where I want to leave from, somewhere down here, 144 gate. We'll go gate 144 parking, says departure. Happy days. So that's where we're departing from. In terms of sim brief, let's go and do sim brief. I've got previous flight plans, so I'll just edit that. It will change the times and dates to now, but I'm not really that bothered by it because although I'm going to fly the route from sim brief, I'm not using the sim brief weather. Generate flight. Boo! And countdown. How many letters have you got? For those who are in the UK. Import into sim. As I say, the winds, etc. aren't going to match because the sim I've put different weather just for the purposes of this testing. It's just because I want to go off particular runways for particular reasons. But imported the flight plan, which is all very good. The issue I have now, it's imported into the sim, but you'll notice that it's put us back onto runway 08 right, which is not what we wanted. We wanted to be on an actual parking spot. That's a sim issue. That's got absolutely nothing to do with, well, it's a sim/sim brief issue. It's nothing to do with what we're doing, but I just sort of demonstrate it quickly. Set as departure. Right, let's go fly. Okay, so here we are at our departure point. I am, to a degree, going to use the checklist. Flight deck safety. So landing gear is down, weather radar's off, transponder is in standby, air brake is in. Flaps are selected up, nav lights as required so they can go on, which are there. Batteries 1 and 2 on and checked, so they're ding ding. Then we get the master switches, so I'm going to turn the yaw damper on as well at the time. That's those, and also whilst I'm up here the anti-skid can go on. Brake fans I'm going to pop to auto, and then auto spoiler, make sure that's on, and the lift spoilers are on as well. And then coming down here we'll be able to do some more stuff in a moment. So the brakes yellow and parked is down the bottom of the pedestal. I'm fine with that. Ground ignition as required. Anti-skid lift spoilers are all on. Bus tyres are fine, they're on auto. Standby inverters, absolutely fine. Standby generators are armed. That's all those switches that were up there. Generators 1 and 4 both off and reset. So the generators are... where are the generators gone? Going mad. Generators down here, they're both off. Galley shed goes to galley. Not quite sure. APU generator goes to on, even though the APU's not on. Engine fire handles are all in. Fire loops are fine. Ground test fire. We're not going to do the ground test. AC power available. So we've got ground power. You can see it with the green light here. So we are now going to put the AC ground power on, which is that way. And clunk where things come to life. We've done all of this. External AC switches on, and then the master warning system red alert light hasn't come on. But there's also a setting here where we can just get rid of that. And that flashes because we need to get rid of that. Tick item. And then we're on to starting the APU. So starting the APU. Left inner pump goes on. APU air off. So what we're trying to do is make sure we reduce the load on the APU at this point, and get ready to fire everything up. So APU air is off. APU air is over here somewhere. APU air, where have you gone? Where have you gone? APU air is off. These are all the various lights. Start power on. Lights go out, various things happen. Get a bing. And it will start up. I've yet to have an APU fire because I've not set it on any of the things where you could set your failures. Make sure the APU generator is on so that things will go ping when it's ready. There we go. So it's transferred over to APU generator. What we'll do is we'll just make sure that we've got it as we expect. APU generator is on and powering everything. So that's absolutely grand. In which case we can get rid of the external power because we don't want that anymore, do we? And then come down here and we can say goodbye to that, and then subsequently the chocks in a moment. Get that to balance. Cancel that. Landing gear indicators, MWS is fine, which is the master warning system. Now this is an issue where I kept getting things happen that I didn't really want to happen. I'll just pop these on in advance, but there is a quick way of doing the inertial lineup which I will just go through. So basically your inertial reference system is down here, so or inertial INS or IRS, but your inertial system is down here. You would normally put it onto a line. Then we can go here, put a position in, and what we will do is we'll do the route. So FMC, pos in it, and what it wants is this position. So EGKK, this is our IRS position at our current position. That's not necessarily the same as our last known position. So if we were on a stand, we'd be able to put in the stand lat and long here, and that speeds up the alignment. But we're just going to do that because the sim allows us to do that. Then we're going to go to route, EGKK, and we're not going very far at all. We're going EGJJ to there. It's Speedbird 42 Charlie. Bosch, happy with that. Do a departure, chuck the departure in, which is the 26 left, and then it's the Lelna. Oh no, it's the NOV 1 X-ray, whatever it is. Into the route, activate that, execute that. Then we want to put the rest of the route in, which is Lima 620 to Sierra Alpha Mike, which is Southampton. It's the VR at Southampton. Bosch, and then next page we're going to go on the November 63 to Lelna. And then we're going to do an arrival from Lelna. I think in the real thing it would have a further arrival up here. So certainly Boeing's do. If you look at, for example, the PMDG, it will have a departure and an arrival for your departure airport, and then for your arrival airport it will just have the arrival. But it normally has another one up here. But there we go. So yeah, we were doing the arrival, weren't we? ILS 08 because I want to do the Juliet Whiskey 2, Lelna 1 Kilo. Juliet Whiskey 2 is one of the arrivals that are there. Execute that, and then it wants us to go and do the performance, which I'm more than happy to do. So let's go here. This has dropped us into performance now, and if I come over here, should be able to dash between the two. So the zero fuel weight is 34.7. So 34.7, that goes there. It knows what fuel we've got in the aircraft, 4.5, which will just take as our planned fuel, and the reserves will just chuck it in as 2. I'm not going to get overly excited. That's that. The cruise altitude is flight level 200. Chuck that there. I'm not going to worry about the rest of that. 6,000 feet, execute, and we'll just clear that. A warning. So onto our legs page. We're now going to discuss a couple of things. Let's have a look at how we're doing with our alignment. So let's do a fast align and see how long it takes. Now, in terms of actual align, so you can see when it's got the yellow light, it's aligning. When it's got no light, it is aligned. And when it's flashing, you're in align and it needs you to go to nav. So what we're going to do is going to turn it off, going to go to align, nav, up, and then back to align and do that. And this one we're going to see if we can do it with just that. And we'll see what happens with that, see if it aligns it quickly. But what you're supposed to do is from off you're supposed to go align, nav, back to align. In order to go back to align you have to click the middle of the thing and it lifts it up. So there's obviously a gate between nav and align, which makes sense. But I'm not sure if it's going to do it. I'm not sure at all. Get FMC up here whilst we wait just to see if it does it. There we go. The one on the right's doing it, so the one on the right I did correctly. There we go. And then we'll just try it again with the one on the left. We go all the way to off. We go align, off, pick it up, move back to align, put it down. We'll leave that for a minute to sort its life out. So obviously it's done ours, hasn't it? It's only done one of the two. Still not happy, is it? That one worked, but that one didn't. Yeah, it would have been up by now if it was happy. Oh, there we go. It's just gone off. Happy days. Oh, of course it was solid, wasn't it? It's flashing when it's waiting to align. Solid when it's aligned. There we go. We've got our tellies up. That's absolutely fantastic now. So now what we're going to do just quickly, well, we'll just squeeze our way through this. So the IRS is fine. FMS we've done. IRS is onto nav. EFIS master switches are both on, and the PFD, ND and weather we're fine with that. Overhead annunciators, not going to get excited about that. Cabin emergency, all that stuff. Let's just make sure that we do have our various things on. So that can go on. We're going to start the engines in a moment. That can go on. We can pop that on, pop that to that. That's all good to go. And then we're going to get ready for the start. So up here, that's all good. That's all good. Going to get the pumps on. This is not how you do it, by the way. I'm just squeezing through it nice and quickly so that I can get us into the air to play around with the air. For engine start, these all need to go on. That's all fine. That goes to there. That goes on. That's all fine. We'll set up the landing altitude as 0 because it's basically sea level. Screens can go on. We don't seem to run out of power in this thing, which is good. And then the fasten seatbelt signs can go on. And then this is the engine air. We'll leave that off for the moment. APU air needs to come on for the start. And then we can leave the packs and cabin air all off at the moment. So cabin pressure is fine. And then we go into this thing where we need to test the hydraulic pumps as well, actually. So the hydraulic pumps are up here. Here they are. So put the DC pump on, make sure that the light goes out, turn the DC pump off. Put this on to on, and put the PTU on, so the transfer unit on. This should come around to just over 3,000. Absolutely fine. So we've done hydraulic contents checked. DC pump is checked. AC pump and PTU on. Thrust levers are at idle. Manual and electric trims are fine. ACU and PTU off. AC pump and PCU off. So they can go off. That's absolutely fine. Don't care about that. The pressure's draining away, but that's absolutely fine. Continuous ignition I'm not going to bother with. Engine anti-ice goes on, which is these down here. So they're all on. Heaters off, but I've turned them on. We'll see if we can brake. I'm just happy if we break something, because then it's just going to be a case of, oh look, engine air all off, which we've got all off down here. Here. Flight deck emergency, fine. And flight annunciators, we haven't tested them, but I'm willing to risk it. Flight instruments are all fine. We're just going to ignore all of that. Control disconnect's fine. Autopilot is checked and off. Then we're just going to set up our panel. So we are going up to 4,000 feet initially. According to our SID, we'll see how it behaves in terms of the climb out and then capturing the altitude and also the speed for that matter. We'll just come down here and discuss these two bits down here whilst I'm here. So this is a slight change over the 146 in terms of this thing here, the thrust management system, or the TRS, the thrust rating, or TRP, thrust rating panel. So basically this is what your auto throttle uses in terms of the various modes for climb out and then flight. And you can see we've got three main modes. We've got toga, MCT, which is max continuous thrust, and climb. Actually, once you're in the climb, that's valid for the climb, the cruise and the descent. So don't be fooled by that. And what you can see is in the max takeoff for toga, we've got an N1 of 93.9 as our limit. We can change what's being read on here. So for example, if I squeeze that through, it won't come up with temperature at the moment because we haven't derated the engine. But you can also change the other characteristics by going to reduce thrust. So this is a reduced thrust takeoff, and you'll see instantly it's gone down to 89.7. If I then go to temperature, this is the assumed temperature that you're setting to reduce the power of the engine. And what you're doing is you're tricking the system into thinking that the outside is hotter than it is. And when the engine is limited by temperature, it takes that into account and therefore reduces the throttle so it doesn't over temperature the engine. Is a very basic and rudimentary way of describing it. But as I say, you can then control your derate by virtue of N1 temperature, and so on and so forth. At this point you can change other things as well, but we're going to leave it on toga because we're going to just get off the ground as quick as we can. We're just going to rock. The other thing that's down here is this little card. This is your V-Speeds card. You can see it's got VR for rotate and V2. Dead easy to use. It auto selects the weight that you're at on the top. You just need to click on your flaps setting for whatever flaps it is. We're going to do flaps 18, and then if you come down here you can see we've got 132 and it'll be 137 over here for V2 plus 5. Sorry, that's rotate, and this is V2, I believe. I'm not quite sure what it's setting up, but there we go. Let's just double check what it's got on the panel actually. That's a quick way of doing it. What's it chosen? 137, so yeah, that's V2. We're actually going to climb out at V2 plus 10. So that we just keep a little bit more speed available to us. So that's that. Make sure these are on because these are your DMEs. If you wanted your DMEs, your VHF and DMEs. Now in terms of the lateral modes here, the lateral and vertical modes on this panel, slightly different to a 737. So although this is a 737 panel and we're in a jet aircraft, the MCP doesn't have a VNAV mode. The aircraft doesn't have VNAV, it was never fitted with it, so this is not a bug. Yes, the hand illuminates over it, but it's not a bug, it was never fitted. What we do need to do is turn our flight directors on. Whichever one you're using as the master, in this case the captains, you turn that one on first and you come up with a little MA marker up here. You'll notice it's not up here. So in terms of modes, we'll just cover them. The lateral mode, you've got LNAV, it does work, VOR localizer. Then you've got your two landing modes down here. You've got MLS, microwave landing system. It was thought to be the replacement to the ILS, the instrument landing system, but it never really took off. I suspect not just because it was complex and expensive, but also because of the advent of GPS. And then approach mode. So these are fundamentally your horizontal modes: LNAV, VOR localizer, and approach. You've also got heading, of course. In here, your vertical modes, as I say, VNAV doesn't work. So again, you've got approach technically as a vertical mode as well, but you've got alt hold, vertical speed, level change, and I don't use thrust. I'm not really that familiar with it, so I use level change personally. The reason being is that the aircraft should maintain whatever speed it is at in terms of the auto throttle, so you should not stall. If you're on vertical speed, it's very easy if you take your eyes off it. If the speed is dropping, what the aircraft will do is go, well, I need to maintain that rate of climb, so it will pitch up, which slows the aircraft down, so it pitches up more, desperate to try and keep that rate of climb, and then eventually you get to the aircraft will stall. Correspondingly with this, it will maintain the speed, but if you haven't got enough power, it will just drive you into the ground. So those two are the two modes of choice with this. I prefer level change for a climb, and quite commonly I will switch between the two for a descent depending on what I'm trying to do. So I'm happy that that's all set up as I need it. The only thing I'm going to do is, what's my outbound heading? 257. I'm just going to set this up in case I have a senior moment and I need to just climb out and avoid everything. I'm just going to go out on the heading, which is 257. One of my big bugbears is that if you're in the aircraft, it's very easy to I'd suggest it's easier to differentiate between the inner and the outer ones of these. In the sim, it's quite easy to click that one or move that one, and yeah, all hell breaks loose. So I'm going to go down here now before we go any further, and we're going to talk about holds. So there's a lot in the documentation about holds. I'll just bring it over here. So there's two different types of holds you can do really. Planning holding pattern at a waypoint in the flight plan, and deleting that said waypoint, and then holding at present position of the aircraft. I have not managed to get this one to work. We'll try it again in the air, but I haven't had the ability to get this one to work. And then exiting the holding pattern, there's two ways of doing it. Select and executing the exit hold button on the route hold page, or initiating a direct to. But as I say, I have not, for love nor money, managed to get the present position hold working. We'll see if we can do it this flight, see what I'm doing, but we'll follow these instructions word for word. And then deleting holding pattern in the flight plan is up here as well. So we'll follow that through and make sure we do it according to that. But let's say we want to do a hold at Midhurst. What we can do, so this is further along the flight plan. It's not going to affect us now because it's not there. In fact, we'll go to a waypoint that's not in the departure. So Olgood's not in the departure. In fact, I don't want to do that because I want to do one that's going to be easy to remedy. So we'll do Midhurst. I can set a hold at Midhurst. So click hold, click the waypoint, put it in the boxes. It comes up with, do you want to check which beacon it is, because it's a beacon. Click that, hold at mid there. It's in. Now it's ahead of us, so what we should be able to do is delete a hold in the pattern. Press the legs page for the route legs page, which we are on. In fact, we need to modify that so that it's in. Press the legs page. The delete key will appear alongside. So route legs. Press the delete key. Bing, and then where we want to delete the hold, is it? Press the line select key corresponding to the holding pattern that is to be deleted. So let's see how we get on with this. So hold at mid. I assume that because the numbers... Now here we go. Is this the hold at mid or this the hold at mid? I'm going to say this is the hold at mid. So we'll get rid of that. And then it clicks to that. Press the line select for the waypoint that follows the route discontinuity. So it's deleted mid doing that. Should we try it doing it the other way? So let's go route, well, departures and arrival, departure 26 left, and let's reinstate that. This is why I wanted to do it this way. Execute. Now if I go to legs, it should be, oh, it's because I didn't clear the discontinuity, isn't it? Next page, pick that up, previous page, drop that in, execute. So we seem to have NOVMA twice, so let's pick that one up, pop that one there, execute. Ooh, oh, have we broke it? I think we've broke it. Let's try again. Departures and arrival, departure 26 left, next page, NOVMA 1 X-ray, execute, legs, see what we've got now. There we go, that's it gone. Lovely. So it appears, unless I've clicked the wrong one, should we do it the other way and see what we get? So hold mid, click in there, choose that one, execute. So it was the hold one we got rid of. I'm assuming that if we get rid of mid, it's just going to get rid of the waypoint. But let's try it. Delete mid. Maybe that's it. Delete that one. Execute. Let's just do that and then drop that in there. Ah, so if you click the one below it, that seems to be the one that affects it. Right, sorted. Happy days then. So let's just do that once more just to make sure that we've got it right. Click, hold, take your waypoint, drop it in the boxes. Make sure if it's a VOR you choose the right one. Click execute. Drops the hold in. So the hold at is above the hold. So it's going to mid-hurst and then it's holding. So that's the order it's doing it. If I want to get rid of that, I can go to delete the hold. It comes up with the discontinuity. Just execute that, pick that up, drop that there, and then execute that, and that's absolutely fine. So that I'm very happy with. That sorted that out for me. It's just about knowing which of the two to drop it over. The other way to do it, from what I understand, is hold mid, chuck it in there, comes up with this, do that, and then execute. It will drop our hold in. So the other way to do it is the hold at is for this second waypoint bit. So if I pick that up there, pop it there. Ah, yes. So that worked. That's nice. Okay. So that's fine. The other element I found is that in theory, according to the system, now this is in fairness to Just Flight, they don't mention anything about it in this, but I will mention it. Let's put a hold at mid-hurst again. Hold mid, drop it in there, pick that, and then execute it. The hold's at mid-hurst, so that's absolutely fine. However, if I go to the hold page, which is where I can then set up the hold, it's got one of one. It's got next hold, so in theory, I could put another hold in at a different position. This is what I've had trouble with. Should we try? Should we be bold and try it? We'll try and put hold in at NOVMA as well. Do I do it? Do I do it? No. I don't think you'd ever have a set of circumstances in the sim land where you'd want to set up consecutive waypoints with consecutive holds. You might have an occasion to do it in the real world, but let's just leave that. Let's not muck around with that, because otherwise I'll break it. This is one of the things that I've been playing around with and has resulted in me getting mildly frustrated. But we're sorted here. So what we'll do is if we just go to legs, that gets rid of that, and then all we're going to do is pick up Novma, chuck it there. That's us sorted. In fact, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to hold at Novma because what I want to do is set it up for... So we're coming in from... is it Midhurst that we're holding at? No, Novma. We're coming into Novma on 257, and what I want it to do is do a parallel join. So from that position, if I have it as the inbound as 090, and you'll see, in fact, if I do it as 100, you'll see what I'm on about here when it happens, and we want it to be doing left-hand turns. Execute. Okay, so, and if we just choose legs again, it goes right to the front again. So that's all set up with our avionics. I'm quite happy with that. We'll make sure that they're on perf, index, perf. They're set up with that. So I think we're all set up. I've probably missed something because I routinely do. My memory is absolutely shocking these days. Oxygen main valve is this over here. Where's it gone? There it is. Turn that on. Oxygen mask I'm not going to bother testing because we hopefully won't get hypoxia. And then we're going to come up here for the before start checks. So the briefing is complete. We're going to go and do a takeoff, fly a bit and land. Brakes are yellow and parked. Hydraulics are all off at the moment. Fuel panel checked and set. Let's just double check that. Yeah, it's all on. Ice detection is on. So that's some of the switches up here. Lights and notices are set. Air conditioning checked and set. So I'm going to make sure it's off for takeoff, which it is, just so that we've got the juice, and the ice protection is on for starting the engines. Don't ask me why. Make sure the seat belts are fine. The only thing with this is I find it very difficult to see if a switch is on or off, but that's the design of the aircraft as opposed to one by Just Flight. It's just the way it is in a sim, isn't it? So that's all looks good to me. Landing altitude will have a 0. Fasten seatbelts is on, which is this one here. And then altimeters are set by using the magical B key. MWS ground operation switch is reset. That's that little red ball on the right. TRP is all done. Iris is fine. Doors and equipment closed and removed. Engine starting, ready to go. So, have we got a tug on this? Let's remove the chocks. Let's get our tug, which is nice to have a built-in tug. We'll take the brakes off. And let's see if it moves straight away. It does. Now, one of the things I'd like is if this was a pop-out, so if we could see it when we're outside of the aircraft, because at the moment we've just got to guess. But let's start getting an engine going, and what we'll try and do is we'll see if we can get one to burst into flames. So it's FADEC though, so I don't suggest it will at any point, but we come up here and ping. Love that noise, absolutely love that noise. There's a truck coming. It's just going to irritate us somewhat, and then what I'm going to do is just put a screeching left handbrake turn into this, and we'll see if we get anywhere near a yellow line. Probably not, because it's me. If we need to, we can just spin it on the spot almost, which I think we might do. Oh, pressed the wrong thing there, haven't I? Never mind. We'll just get rid of him. And as you can hear, it's called the Whisper Jet. Very quiet. Are you going to go? Yes. Very quiet. Very, very friendly to the environment, really, in terms of noise abatement, etc. So let's put that to 3. We didn't manage to blow anything up, so let's start that one. Come down here, and because we're being uber lazy, because we can be, but we'll just put the fuel on for all of these as we go. As I say, it's FADEC engine, so I'm not convinced it would necessarily burst into flame. But I will point out this, actually, whilst I'm here. I think these needles are the wrong way round, because the oil temperature has risen immediately well within the green. The oil pressure is rising slowly. Now when you start an engine, it even goes for GA, the first thing you're looking for is oil pressure, because you don't want the metal scraping the metal with no oil. So the first thing I would expect to see go up is the oil pressure. And you know, in GA they'll turn around and say oil pressure rising within 30 seconds. And if you haven't got it rising within 30 seconds, you just shut it straight down again. So I reckon that's the wrong way round. But if it's not, feel free to correct me. Pink. I just love that noise. It's very true to life as well. So we get our checklist down, ready to go. Flight deck door, I'm not bothered, we haven't got any passengers, it's not real. APU generator AC set, we'll do that in a moment. Beacon on, which it is because we're starting the engines. Packs and APU air is off, engine anti-icing is on, AC pump is off. We should have done this before we got carried away, we just jumped ahead of ourselves. Start power norm, start master on. We've actually done all of this, so we're going to go to the after starts. Is this one up and running? Yes, it's up and running. So ping. Final one. Bling. And then I don't believe terrain warning is alive and well in this. So, but we'll stick it on. That's weather. And as I said, I don't think terrain, so terrain's not on. We've got a map, that's nice. Got a taxi map, do like that. Does it change with the rain? It does, you know. Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's very nice. That is a feature that I absolutely adore. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. That's really nice. What a lovely feature to have. Didn't even realise it was there. Right, so the engines have started. That's all good to go. Let's sort the overhead out now. Having got the engines on, let's just check. We've got all the pumps on as we require them there. Got all that's fine. All the fuel's on. Generators 1 and 4 are ready to go. They're all on. That's absolutely fine. They're on. That can come off in a moment. We just want to make sure that we've got the generators on. So yeah, they're on. So APU generator can come off. Completely off. And then the APU can come off. That's absolutely fine. We'll put that back to off. Turn the start master off. Absolutely fine. We'll turn these off now we've started. Coming over here, the pressurization's fine. It's reset itself to 200 for the altitude. I want it 100 for the landing altitude. Or is it just that's the landing altitude and then it reverts to, yeah, maybe it reverts to the pressure of where you're at. Clever. They're all on. We're not using any anti-ice in terms of the engines, etc. Packs go on. We'll put it to recirc on the fans. APU air can go off. Although I believe in normal service they would keep the APU on for a takeoff, but I don't think we're expecting anything untoward. And then the air from all 4 engines goes on. Clear that. Set flaps 18, which seems ridiculously high compared to a lot of other aircraft. You know, when you're talking about like 737s at flap 5, 18 degrees, that's well down. In fact, if we do have a look at the animations, just minimise that. That's flap 18. Bring it round here. What we at? Let's stick it all the way down. See what it looks like in terms of the animation. That looks nice. And under the wing, nicely modelled. Nice effect of the hot exhaust. Wings tidy themselves away. Yeah. Really nicely done. Nice animations there. That's reset itself to there. Your flap indicators over here on the right, just here. So yeah, right, next thing we'll have a look at the taxi behaviour and characteristics. Where they gone? Here they are. Now on the ground, very nice to drive around. Very good with the steering. So some aircraft we have in the sim are very twitchy. This is really stable, so it will just go where it goes, and it will toddle along on idle thrust very nicely. Absolutely no qualms about the ground handling on this thing. It's a real pleasure to drive around an airport. Pop a bit of power on and just get ourselves going a little bit quicker. And yeah, it's got a certain amount of inertia to it, but not a massive amount. So pedal in, stop, still swings, pedal in, stop, still swings. Yeah, so it's got a certain amount of inertia. It does feel like you're driving something. Obviously I've never driven a 146 around, even taxiing it, but yeah, actually that reminds me of I did a stint whilst I was in the military on the dummy carrier deck at Culdrose, driving Hunters around. So they weren't able to take off, but you could drive these Hunters around. It was absolutely awesome. As a holdover, it was brilliant. Brilliant. So yeah, a lot of fun doing that. A lot of fun driving. Can you imagine at the age of what was I, 19, starting up Hunters and driving them around in so that aircraft handlers could get used to trying to move jets around. How fantastic is that? I tell you what, the military gives you a lot of things that are a lot of fun that you don't realise at the time just how much fun it is. Bring ourselves around here, ready to go, and then we'll just do ourselves a few checks. We've probably missed them. It'll be absolutely fine. Bit of a stutter there. Must admit my frame rates on this are down at 25 to 30, but I don't think I've got my sim optimised, which is probably more of the issue. So after starts, we'll go down here. Start power is back to normal. We've done that. Start selector master off. Engine anti-ice is off. Generators are on. Brake fans are auto. Hydraulics are on and checked. Heaters are on. We've got no animals. APU air is off. Packs and cabin heat are cabin air are on. Doors and windows are closed. Chocks and ground equipment removed. Transponder we're not going to bother with today. Before takeoff, brakes are yellow and green. Flaps checked and selected. Flight instruments are checked. I'm happy with all those. Flight directors are on both sides. Trims are set. Config is down here. This little button in the middle here. We're fine. Nav aids and transponders, transponder all set as required. Briefing is reviewed. We're going to take off and go do some flying. Speeds N1 we've set up. Continuous ignition we're not going to use, and cabin is secure. So coming down here.
Cabin crew, please take your seats for takeoff.
Oh, love it. Right, and then lining up weather radar, lights, auto throttle controls, and the main warning system. So get rid of that. Bing bong.
Cabin is secure for departure.
Excellent. Happy days. Crew cabin calls just lit up there. I find it really weird that these lights are down here, yet your strobe lights are all the way up here. But there we go. Who am I to say anything? So, and we have auto throttle armed, ready to go. We're going to go in LNAV mode. And our first stop altitude is 5,000 feet. And let's see how she handles. Well, I know how she handles, but we'll just double check that it is what I'm expecting. But she flies really, really nicely. Just bring her around. And it's the same as a lot of aircraft now, a bit slow with that turn. Never mind, we'll just straighten ourselves back up. Same as a lot of aircraft down here. Little screw, if you press that, it goes into toga. So just put some power on. Make sure the engines are all good. They're responding evenly and as expected. Press toga. Now I find this weird, the deviation bar's out to the right. We're on the runway. We can't be any more LNAV'd than we are. But the deviation bar's out to the right. Very weird. Once we're in the air, it seems to sort its life out. Here we go. As I speed up, it seems to come in actually. She flies off beautifully. And if you see now, the bar is absolutely fine.
Positive climb. 0%.
Gear up. Hand flies really nicely. And then what we'll do is we'll let the automatics take the strain. Pop the autopilot in, and then what we'll also do is put level change.
Speed checked, flaps 24.
Did it say flaps 24? I'm sure it said flaps 24. I'm not. The logic might have gone awry somewhere in there. But there we go, climbing away nicely. Love the sound. Love the sound. Right, so this has got us doing a hold at Novma. So we're going to let it get up to 4,000 feet, let it get to Novma. We'll just increase the range on this a little bit. There we go, there's the hold at Novma. In fact, I can just bring it down one range ring. Now I've got an issue with how it depicts the holds in the plan view, which we'll have a look at. This is kind of cool. This is like an extra nav screen here. Anything else that we need to do up here? Yes. We've got the pressurisation on. Yep, that's all good. And we're pressurising. And we're levelling at 4,000. One of the things I've noticed it does is it occasionally overshoots the speed and undershoots the altitude as it sorts itself out, but it does rectify itself pretty quickly. So this is all looking pretty good. It's just balancing the speed to capture this altitude, which is absolutely fine. Right, so it's depicting the hold as joining at Novma. Now, if I describe the hold from here, the inbound leg of the hold is this top one here. So you would fly the hold as going inbound over the hold and then go anti-clockwise around back into the inbound leg. In order to join this hold from this position, I would expect us to join and do a reciprocal down here. So it's called a parallel join. You'd come down here, then you'd turn and you'd turn as a teardrop and come straight back to the hold there. Technically that's what you're aiming to do, but in reality when you're hand flying it, you quite often come in a little bit short. But that's what I would expect it to do. I'd expect it to parallel the inbound, so go outbound on the same track as the inbound, and then do a teardrop turn to come back in. What I've seen this do is, instead of doing the parallel, it cuts across and does a teardrop hold instead, a teardrop join instead. So we'll see what it does, but from this position I would expect it to do a parallel. If you were over here, when you're coming at this angle, it's all about making sure the aircraft's not turning too sharply. So from this position over here I would expect it to then do the teardrop, because it's easier than trying to do a tight turn over the hold, over the fix, sorry, to join this leg. So if you're up here somewhere you do a teardrop, whereas here I would expect it to do a parallel join, because we're not that far off the reciprocal of the heading for the hold. So that's what I'm hoping it does, is the parallel join. We'll see what it does in a moment when we get there, but just monitoring it to say it's doing a pretty good job, to be fair. It's probably, well, it's a lot better than I can do in terms of hand flying, that's for sure. But let's just get this up. Now one of the things I've noticed is, if you look, the hold is over a point. If I go down here and switch it to plan, this is where I find it goes a little bit wild. The hold is not linked to the waypoint. You see now the waypoint's here, the hold was actually here, and now it's over here. It's not linked to anything. So the plan indicator for where it's applying to holds, it's wrong. It just is. There's no other way to describe it. If I go back to map, you'll see it's gone back to the correct place at Novma. So we'll see how it copes, and then we'll have a look at getting out of the hold. Now, as I say, if you do the bring up and drop over, it may delete the hold that you're the waypoint that you're at as well, but we'll ask it to just exit the hold. We're just going to click exit hold and see what it does. But let's see. I'm intrigued by this. I'm really intrigued by this, because I've tested this a couple of ways to see if I'm right, and if it does it correctly now, I stand corrected. Absolutely fine, no issues with that. But let's see how it gets on, and it's going to be interesting. We'll soon know, because it will turn fairly significantly to the right, whereas if it's doing a parallel it doesn't need to turn that much at all. So let's have a look. The anticipation is killing me here. We're only at 210 knots, so we're at a nice holding speed, so it shouldn't trip up over that. Is it going to do it? I've given you as nice a parallel entry as I can give you. Oh yeah, it goes straight into a teardrop, doesn't it? A teardrop. Yeah, that's a shame. I've also noticed that sometimes when you're joining holds it doesn't manage to follow the track that's on the screen. That's less of a concern in some respects. If I come down here, I don't know why we were stuttering there. Let's have a laugh at what it looks like in plan. Oh my word. Well, we're certainly not doing that, are we? Let's get the range down. Yeah, it's not over the fix. It's not related to the fix in terms of the direction, because we know that it's only 15 degrees off this, so it's completely out of orientation. It's not over the fix and it's nowhere near us, so broke, I'm afraid. Then we go back to us, and here's our teardrop that we're prescribing or describing in the air. So yeah, it's safe to say that I think obviously it does hold. The plan view's broke and it doesn't do the correct join. From this side it always seems to go into a teardrop, which is obviously wrong. Although I haven't done it from the other side to see if it goes into a parallel or a teardrop as well. but yeah. Right, so let's see if it can actually make this turn, because sometimes it will go quite far out of what it's demonstrate. I mean, in theory, the hold drawn on is what the aircraft is expecting itself to do. But we'll have a look and just see how that goes. What we'll do is we'll go up to flight level 200 in a minute as well and continue on our route, and then we'll have a look at the present position hold as well. As I say, I've done it a couple of times with multiple holds, and I've just had an absolute nightmare where I've done one hold after another, and I've ended up with all sorts of issues. Now, it probably is potentially operator error, and although it's there as an option within the sim, it's not in Just Flight's written documentation. So I don't think that I could be unfair. I think it'd be unfair to say to them, well, something that's not in your documentation, you know, because it's either, it may be something that they're not going to implement, it may be something that they have got to do in future, or it may be something where actually it's me making an absolute hash up of it, but you know, we'll see. So yeah, we're into the hold. It's flying quite nicely. In terms of the angle of bank, yeah, for a rate 1 turn, it's normally 10% of your 10% of your airspeed plus 7. So 10% of our airspeed is 21 plus 7 is 28. So it was flying at about 28 degrees angle of attack. Quite happy with that. So yeah, it's flying it quite nicely now. So what we'll do is we will kick it off and see what we end up with. So if I go to hold, exit is armed. I'm just going to click execute and see what it does. So the hold's disappeared from the legs, which is great. You'll notice it's also got rid of NOVMA, which I'm not overly worried about because we don't want to go back there. And it's turning in the shortest route available to get back to being on track, which is good. It's good. So that's great. And then what we will do is whilst we're here, we will initiate a climb. And we'll just get it doing 2 things at once. So the automatics are quite decent. Quite decent. The holds, you need a bit of reading. It's not quite the same as some of the other aircraft where it's intuitive. It's just simply about knowing which one you delete, because if you delete the wrong one, it just becomes that little bit harder. You want to delete, so if it's ahead of you, you want to delete the lower of the 2 because that's in effect the hold. That leaves your waypoint there. Whereas if you're, you know, yeah, it's just awkward. It's just a case of remembering it. So what we're going to do is, as we come round and we get back onto our course, talking of which, where are we going? Where are we going? We're trying to actually get to Hazel, are we? Yeah, we're trying to intercept Hazel and then get back on course. Okay. Oh, while I remember, this this green arc, which obviously marks your the altitude, the position where you're going to achieve the requested altitude, it seems to have a weird arc up here. So you can get it so it's almost cutting through the top here. So the top of the arc will be, so you have a little bit green here, a little bit green here, and the rest will be lost behind the display. I don't know, where are we going? Where are we going? Well, we're not going back to NOVMA because we've passed that. Now we're turning back towards Southampton, Sierra Alpha Mike. What's it got on the... it's got us going to Sierra Alpha Mike here. I think maybe it was a bit too close to Hazel and it got a bit confused. It looks like we're going to go and try and track towards Southampton. That's fine, it's recovering itself. We are asking quite a lot of it. We are asking quite a lot of it, so it seems to be. Yeah, I think we got it to try and regain the track a bit too close to Hazel, and it's had a little bit of a senior moment there, which we all do over time. We all do. So that's not a problem. As soon as we get past Sam, Sierra Alpha Mike, what we're going to do is try a present position hold, and I'm literally going to follow these instructions. Literally going to follow them because I haven't managed to get this to work yet. I'll bring this over. What we need to do is holding at the present position of the aircraft. Press the hold key to open the root legs. Press the 6 right line key to hold at the present position, so PPOS. Review the default holding pattern and press execute. So we'll see how we get on. If it does it now, I'll be over the moon, because that'll be another thing where I'm questioning it, and you know, that'll be a Richard error as opposed to a sim error, which is always good. I'm not going to get too excited about accelerating, just purely out of the fact I want to give us the time to try this a couple of times before we start looking at the descent. But yeah, let's have a... What have we got here? Weather, map, weather. I don't think we've got any weather for it to show anyway. There is a terrain button, isn't there, somewhere? Let's have a look, see if we can find it. I'm sure it's on this centre pedestal somewhere, is it? I may be dreaming of this, but I don't think it's pertinent anyway. I don't think the terrain actually works. If you know otherwise, just let me know. Is there a terrain button? Yeah, terrain display. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Train on. Let's see what we get. Probably not going to get anything until we're in the descent, but we'll leave it on, see if we get any pretty pictures. I doubt it, if I'm honest, though. 1,000 to go. While we're here, actually, what I will do is ILS chart for that. Whilst it's sorting its life out, I can just do some housekeeping. It's the ILS 083. There's the course, we'll set that over here as well. 083. There we go, that sounds good. Sounds like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. 083, my phone goes being at the most inopportune moments, and the inbound's 110.9. 110.9. The ILS, sorry, not the inbound. Swap that over. 110.9. Bring that down. Go the other way. Subtly always go the wrong way to start with. So we've got, at least we've got the ILS set up. What a lovely day out there, look. Right, we are now heading towards All Good. So, using my cheat sheet of the instructions, press the hold button. So, hold button. Hold button. Present position. Check that. Then comes up with waypoint 1. It doesn't say anything about 6 right key to select hold at present position. Review the default holding pattern. So let's go in here, see if, right, here we go. So that's all good. We'll just take it as it is, and then at that point press execute. Is it going to do it? No. It just binned out. Right, so let's try that again. Is it still got it in the hold page? No. So present position. That's our waypoint. That's absolutely fine. Review the default holding pattern. Hasn't got one. Fix waypoint 1, right turn 207. Execute. No, nothing. Hold. Present position. Doesn't like that. This is the problem I was having the other day. I could not get it to do a hold on present position. It just didn't want to play. Hold present position. Hold. That's the waypoint. That's reviewing it. Execute. Is it execute last thing? Press execute to activate the holding pattern. When we look out the window. So I can't get it to do present position hold, and it is in the instructions, and I'm literally doing it exactly as it is in the instructions. So that's a bit of a pain, isn't it, really? So yeah. Oh well, that's a shame. So what I'm going to do is just quickly go over here now. Is that somebody using the toilet behind me in the aircraft? I've got a horrible feeling it might have been. Let's come over to charts, airport charts. Let's get ourselves EGJJ. Now this is through a Navigraph chart subscription. So this is payware. Lelner will have that, and also the approach is going to be an ILS, VOR ILS DME 08. NDB ILS DME 08, and then we'll have the taxi charts as well, which is 10.9. There we go, and that's what we've selected. If I click on saved, there we go, there's our list. So we need to be down at 3,000 feet for our locator beacon, which is where we're going to start the procedure, which is Juliet Whiskey. So we need to set up Juliet Whiskey so we can keep track of that as well, which is down here. What did we say Juliet Whiskey was? Let me just go pop on my other screen, that's easier for me. Juliet Whiskey is 329. Typically you go the wrong way. 329. And stick it on both. on both, so that's our NDB. What we're going to do is, in fact, we'll bring it over. So that we can have a look at it. So this is our approach plate. We are looking at coming in from the northwest. We've got the Lelner arrival, so down here, if I come down here, we're going to come in down by Shark here, and we're going to be flying the reciprocal of the approach. So the approach is coming in, well, not reciprocal, but we're going to come down here, this green leg here. We're then going to turn left, and it's taking us towards Juliet Whiskey. I don't necessarily want to fly this bit, because otherwise it makes it difficult for me to fly here, do a 180, and or a nearly 180, and come back out this way to fly the approach. So I could do one of two things. I could either delete the approach, bring this down to 2,000 feet and fly a straight in, but I want it to try the automatic, so I want to get rid of Shark and go directly to the Juliet Whiskey. So that's the first thing we're going to do, and then we can figure out how far away we need to be in order to descend. So let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Press that, then that. So we want to get rid of Shark. So all we're going to do is click that, pop it there, execute. Now we need to be at 3,000 feet at Juliet Whiskey. So let's find out how long it takes us to get from 20,000 to 3,000 at this speed. So coming over here, clicking on that, come down to the top of descent calculator, sync your current altitude, sync your current ground speed, and then the target altitude for us is 3,000 feet. not 333, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we want a 3-degree glide slope. So click that, press return. Desired top of descent distance 53 nautical miles. So that's from the point where you want to be at 3,000. That's 53 nautical miles back from that. So what we can do is, let's see if we can put a fix in. So the fix we want is Juliet Whiskey. So fix is down here. Juliet Whiskey. Come on, Ricardo. Juliet Whiskey. Stick the fix in and it will tell us how far we've got to go. Now I'm going to add... No, I'm not. I'm not going to add anything because we're only at 210. But we're only 20 miles or so from our descent. If I wanted, I could put something like the distance on, so I could give it a warning of 5 miles. So if I do a /5, I could do that and then pop it in there, and it'll put a range ring at 5 miles from Juliet Whiskey, which is quite nice. The other thing I could do is the outbound leg of the approach is, so let's go to next page. The outbound leg for the ILS is 8.3 miles. So what's that based off? Is that based off Juliet Whiskey? Let's have a look. It's going to be based on 8.3 miles on the India Juliet Juliet. So if I do in India Juliet Juliet, pop that in there. It's not in the database. Dang it. That's because it's an ILS identifier then. That's a shame. Well, what we'll do, it looks pretty co-located with, well, actually the beacon. The beacon is further out, so let's bring this down. We'd be looking at 8.3 miles from this. So coming out here, this position here, 8.3 from the India Juliet Juliet, which is obviously the localizer. That's obviously not in the page in terms of the database page, but I'm just going to put 8.3 from Jersey because that's going to be there or thereabouts. So let's go to the previous page and let's put at 8.3. Not quite sure where it's got a radial there. Again, not quite sure why that's got a radial. That's not what I asked it for. I just wanted to give it the distance. That's weird. Well, we'll have a look at what the depiction is on the screen, shall we? Looks like it's going to be okay. It's not drawn a fixed position per se, but we'll get rid of that 5 mile one because that's just confusion now. So delete that one. Yeah, happy with that. So that at least gives us a cue to turn back inbound. That's fine. So what's our distance now to go? 58, and we needed 53, so we might as well start our descent. I'm going to use level change, so let's go down to 3,000, start winding, press level change. Now if you remember, I mentioned that level change it controls the speed at whatever we've set, which is 210. We haven't accelerated because it's short leg, it's not really an issue, but we control the rate of descent by varying the speed, so the rate of descent. It'll become clear. I'm tired and weary. I think we all are sometimes. So let's see what we've got in terms of checklists. Oh, we didn't even do our climb. Altimeters are fine, PTU is off, APU is stopped, fasten seatbelts. I'm awful at these checklists. That's now PTU needs to go on. Pressurization set because I've not changed it. Not that one, you fool. PTU needs to go on. Check pressurization is checked set. Briefing, we're not going to bother with that. Landing data. Need to set the bugs, and the way to do that is just to come down here. Scooby in here. We're now down at 39,000 kilos. Landing flaps, you choose your landing flap setting. It's a fairly short runway, so we'll go for 30. And then what we're going to do is just make sure that the bugs are set. Well, they're not showing at the moment, but I'm sure they will show in due course. Right, so what I'm going to do now, if you look down here, the banana is the bottom of our descent. I'm just going to bring the air brakes out slightly. Now this is where you could use vertical speed to change this, but this is just my preferred method. So that will bring us down short of the point where we need to be, and let's just reduce the scale on the map. So it's given us a top of descent at this point. We've started descent slightly early, and it's really bad practice. We shouldn't just descend out with our air brake out. It's very inefficient, and I think you get shouted at by your chief pilot. But we're in a sim. It's not our fuel. I'm quite happy to do this because we're just playing around. Yeah, it's come out with a look. It's come out with a radial. I didn't want a radial. Why have you come out with a radial? Why can't I just do? Why can't I just do a range ring? That's a bit frustrating. Actually, I'll just do this. See if we can. Just watch the arc. I'm just pushing it out. And you see what I mean? The top goes out the top of the instrument, look. Don't know if that's... It's going all the way up here, look. Really weird. And then it loses it. How weird. Because in the actual aircraft, I'm not sure if this would be part of the depiction. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference to flying and operating the aircraft. It's still an enjoyable aircraft. It's just one of those anomalies where you look at it and you go, really? Is that how it would work? And I genuinely don't know. I genuinely do not know. Approach next. Now I'm just going to cheat with the altimeters and just press B. I don't know what the pressure setting is there, but we'll just press B. Now, one of the things I was going to do is bring us out this way, this side. So what we'll do is I'll just take that over there and change it onto that one, because we're coming in for Juliet Whiskey. And what I'm going to have to do is just turn us out to the left out here so that we get a better intercept. And we'll see how we get on. I just don't want to give it such a hard time. It's quite messy up here, isn't it? There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. .33 miles required for the remaining descent. And what have we got? 34. Might just increase the rate of descent a little bit. Although we're going to be turning away slightly. So as soon as we pass Alderney, I'm just going to offset us to the left a bit. Bring this all the way round. Because we've been playing, mucking around, seeing what we can get away with, seeing what we can't get away with. The holds are better than I thought they were, if I'm honest. The first couple of times I tried the holds, I was like, holy macaroni, what's going on here? And yeah, it was a bit of a Reread the manual. Not quite what I expected. Reread the manual. So it's if you're used to a 737, I think it's slightly different to that. But I'm not going to say it's wrong because I've not had, you know, the ability to look at the real thing. I'm only going by what we've got printed from Just Flight, and I think it's pretty good. I mean, their documentation is really, really good for this. I've got absolutely no qualms about their documentation at all. So we've brought it into that. We're coming out of LNAV, and what we'll do when we get closer is I'm going to put it back into LNAV by doing a direct to, and we'll see how we get on with that. And what I will also do is I'll press B early. Obviously wouldn't in real life, but I know that the pressure setting here is quite high. So, and if you watch the altimeter, it's going to jump up. Oh, it's not. No, it's set it as 1013. Oh, that's all right then. Ah. I thought it was a much higher pressure, but that's good then. That is good. This reminds me of Blackadder. It's a barren, featureless land out there. You've got the map up the wrong way, sir. Have I? What a fantastic programme that is. Or was, I say. So we're coming down nicely, and we are going to be able to position ourselves. So this bit we're aiming for actually at the moment is the end of the prescribed go-around route. The airfield's obviously here in the middle of this mess. When we get a bit closer, we'll reduce the range a little bit so that we can see a bit more clearly. Don't want that. Want that. And you can see our VOR needles up here now, showing us where they. Sorry, is it VOR or ADF? VOR. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick ADF, I fear, because that's in relation to the ILS, which I'm not so concerned about. I want to know where the down here, isn't it? ADF, there we go. So that's pointing to the ADF beacon now. These two control this. Although I'm not quite sure what it's... oh, nice animation of the ADF needle. Do like that. Horizontal because it's got no signal from the VOR. That's a nice animation. Yeah, we like that. We do like that. We like that a lot. We're getting there. Slowly, but we're getting there. Yeah, that's a really nice animation, and the needle's twitching and moving about a bit as well. I do like that. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Just watching the altitude, passing 6,500. Coming down nicely. We'll be level before we need to turn back inbound. Let's have a look at what we've got on our system down here. So legs. So Juliet Whiskey. So we're going to try and go direct to Juliet Whiskey and take it from there. I wonder if just pressing LNAV will take us back onto that course from here. We'll see what it does, because I haven't got the opportunity to do... Have I got a normal direct to button down here? Routing the legs. No, I haven't got a normal direct to button. haven't got normal direct to. Up the range of one more. I'll tell you what, should we stick it in LNAV and just see what happens now then? LNAV, where have you gone? Oh, it's not doing anything, is it? Let's give it a helping hand to re-intercept LNAV. And if we do it so it's literally just before the beacon, and we'll see what happens there. Not on intercept heading. Well, there we go. Thousand to go. Has our warning gone? So we'll just clear that. Clear. LNAV's on, so we'll see what it does. We'll see what it does. And we'll give it a chance as well. We'll bring the speed down a bit, just so we're not going to ask it to do ridiculous turns. And see what I'm fascinated
Speed
by
check.
this.
Flaps 80.
Flaps 18. Now what I'm hoping is it will catch Juliet Whiskey and go in. But we're pretty much aiming for Juliet Whiskey, a little bit before if I'm honest. Bit of a stutter there, so that's literally driving at Juliet Whiskey. Hopefully it'll be close enough that it'll just pick it up. I believe in you. I believe in you, little aircraft. Well, it's turning. This is looking promising. Come on, I believe in you. Has it got its LNAV? LNAV. Woo! Go you. So the left-hand line here is the outbound. That's what we should be following and then turning back in. Bring the speed down a touch more. As I say, I want to give it a chance. And then we need to go down to 2000. That's our second stage of flaps down. Oh, we haven't played Light Simulator. Oh, never mind. In fact, we had our landing lights on throughout that whilst we were playing.
Speed checked. Gear down.
I'm going to leave the gear for a bit just until we get around this turn, I think, because we still need to be 8.3 out. Has he put the gear down? No. So that's just really an advisory, that set of wording. I suppose I'd better put some feet on pedals for a bit in a moment. And we'll see what it's like in terms of the automatics. Last time I did this, I absolutely stuffed it up because I engaged approach mode too soon. And it just flew me off into the wild, and I had to go and do a manual landing, so had to recover it, go around, do the full procedure again and do a landing. But this thing flies sweet as anything. It's absolutely gorgeous to fly this thing. But at the end of the day, the key thing here for me is the automatics, because if the automatics don't work, you can't use it in low visibility circumstances where the weather might be rubbish. You know, you can hand fly to a degree, but you can't always hand fly to a very high level if you need to get down to 100 feet or whatever before your decision height. But we've got the 8.3 miles, so that's showing nice on that disc, on that arc. If anything, it's slightly outside the turn, but that's fine. It feels very close to the water, doesn't it? Very close to the water. I tell you what, it's one of the most common accidents in aviation for naval aircraft is flying into the sea, because you've got no perception of depth. You've got no perception of height here at all. It used to happen a lot more than it does these days. Can you imagine without a radar trying to figure that out? Man, it would be horrendous. Right, we're coming around. Everything looks good, so I'm going to go on to VOR localizer. Localizer's alive, good. Localizer down here, let's see if it captures it. Still below glide slope. Now, ideally what you want to do is capture the localizer before you capture the glide slope, so that you're descending within us. If you imagine, if you capture the glide slope outside the localizer, you're basically not protected. Right, you need to be bringing this this in, because we're at
Glide slope capture.
a bit late capturing that. It brought us out quite wide, didn't it? Now, what did we say our speed was? Completely forgot it now. 124. Virtually no wind, so let's do 129. Bit late sorting all this out, jabbering away. But at the end of the day, we're trying to test the aircraft, see if it does what it says on the tin. It's looking pretty good, isn't it? I mean, considering the dullard at the controls has given it a real challenge to try and sort its life out, it's doing better than me. I just had this horrible feeling. I've just looked at OBS. Yes, it is recording. Oh my word. Now this aircraft's capable of steep approaches, so you can go to London City and places like that with this, but
Cabin crew, please take your seats for landing.
she's just a sweetie to hand fly, this thing is.
Cabin is secure for arrival.
Drifting off the centre line though, that's not great, is it? 2 reds, 2 whites, just need to watch the trim. Going a bit low, 3 reds. 2 reds. I'm going to re-establish my descent.
500.
She's got a lot of damping to her, so she's very precise, quite manoeuvrable, but she's very well damped. God, you're off the centre line, Rich. This is awful. Landing.
50. 40. 30.
Get
20.
down. She's a floater.
10.
Ground item. Brake pressure checked. Spoilers yellow and green.
Right, get her down, get her down, get her stopped. Oof, I think we're a bit late there. We've floated too
60
much.
knots.
Oh man, how awful. What a bad ending to an otherwise great flight. Oh dear. Oh well, never mind. Such is life. More practice needed, I think. More practice needed. It wasn't the worst approach, but I just floated. Should have gone around. Never mind, eh? So let's have a little think about this this beauty then, and let's start from the beginning. Everything's out, isn't it? Everything's out. So let's have a little think about this beauty. Exterior modelling, really good 3D modelling. Some of the texturing in places was a little bit less than I would have hoped for, but overall I think 3D modelling, animations, that sort of thing, all really good. Really good. The lighting, the PBR textures, etc., very good. It's just when you go right in close, some of them are a bit meh. But I can't really, other than that, I can't really say anything bad. The undercarriage is done, for example, in terms of the linkages, etc., to a very high standard. The PBR use of texturing, etc., the 3D modelling, all really good. Jump into the cockpit. The cockpit is a work of beauty. It's an absolutely gorgeous thing. It's not, I would say it's not without flaws. There's the odd thing here and there where it's like, you know, it just doesn't. For example, if I come down here, squaring off down here, but I'm being ultra picky. I'm being ultra picky, mainly because, you know, it's such an iconic aircraft in many respects, and it's such an important aircraft to me. When I was growing up, I thought this thing was awesome, watching them go in and out of London City. So yeah, absolutely brilliant aircraft, lovely interior, lovely modelling. As you can see, it's all great. Issue with the engine startup in terms of the gauges, I'm sure that they're switched around the wrong way, but other than that, oh, that's why we went long. Oh no, we were on 30 degrees flat. I thought I might have had an excuse there, but maybe not. Maybe we should have done 33, but I don't think so, because been into Jersey in a 737, although to be fair, the pilot did stand on the brakes. Very impressive landing. It's horrible weather, but there, I digress. The FMC works to a degree. It does do holds. It doesn't seem to like if you do a string of holds one after the other, but I don't know a set of circumstances when you would. Other than that, a normal hold seems to be okay. The only one that I had an issue with, as I say, is the linked holds and the present position hold, which for love nor money, following their documentation, I cannot do. Talking of which, the documentation is absolutely fabulous. The fact that you also have a tutorial flight in there is something that Just Flight have always done, and I think that's a great thing to do. So as I say, I think the documentation is great. And then lastly, the flying. I think this thing is an absolute peach to fly. I think it's really good. Now the question then comes back to that age-old one: do I think it's value for money? Well, for me, it is. I think it's value for money. I think it's pretty decent. It's not cheap, but also it's a case of whether you get what you pay for, and I think you do. I think the systems are decent. I think the systems are well done. It's got a really comprehensive set of checklists, really comprehensive, and so it's an absolute peach. Things like the thrust management system, they've been done well, and so on and so forth. So it's all really good stuff. So there we go, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to tick like, share, subscribe. As I say, sharing and subscribing means an awful lot for the smaller fish like myself in terms of our visibility. It's just a case of trying to help people out. So that would be hugely appreciated. And until the next time, take care.